And we're live. Hi, peeps. It's Tia Severino coming to you once again with another exciting interview. Today, I have someone very special to share with you. I'm going to introduce him to you now. His name is Scott Tips. And Scott is the president of the National Health Federation, which is the oldest health advocacy group in existence, a 64-year history.
That's right.
And I hear you've been doing some wonderful work and some exciting work recently. So, hello, Scott.
Tia. Hi, Tia. Thank you. And good to be here. It's a new way to do a talk or an interview, so I appreciate the introduction by way of this medium. And what can I tell you? You want me to give you an introduction of myself in a short, beyond what you've done? Okay.
Yeah, if you could just let the folks know kind of who you are and what got you involved in health freedom and health advocacy.
Okay. Well, I was one of the first two food and drug lawyers west of the Mississippi back when I started practicing food and drug law. And to not make a long story even longer, I will just say that somewhere in my practice, I came across an organization called the National Health Federation back in the mid-1980s, and I joined it. And eventually I became the president. I had been involved in promoting freedom in freedom groups since I was 12 years old. So it came kind of naturally. But the National Health Federation has been around for what is it now, about almost 64 years, like you just said, and is the world's first health freedom group. And it's the only one that has a seat with the Codex Alimentarius Commission. And we do a lot of work there. In fact, I just came back from a meeting in Berlin that was just about a week ago. But it's not the only thing we do. NHF has been heavily involved in stopping fluoridation of water supplies and in legalizing Laetrile in many different states in the United States, in fighting water fluoridation in Ireland, in attacking aspartame and the legalization of aspartame in our foods. And with the other issue, the big issue with us is vaccine safety and vaccines in general. So this has been a big hot topic for us, and most of about this time last year was spent by me going to Italy and giving talks with various groups from Treviso to Trieste to Venice to Rome and so on, before large crowds, usually large crowds. I think there was once where we had a poor turnout, but almost always it was a large number of people, and letting them know they had international support, certainly from NHF and its members, because we are actually, despite our name, we're an international organization in about 22 different countries. And we also had our people from NHF Sweden who were there in Rome and in Venice to give speeches and to give talks on and fight the fight on vaccines. So we've been pretty much active in that as well. There have been many other topics that we're involved in, but that probably hits the main ones. Protecting supplements is another key issue for us.
If you hear sounds like a small elephant is
small elephant? Yes, I do. Is that your pet elephant that you were telling me about?
I think an elephant might be better behaved on occasion.
I could have sworn you said you had a pet elephant.
Hold on one second. Hey, buddy, I need you to be quiet for me, please. I'm doing a video. Please. Okay, so You were just mentioning codex. For folks who don't know what codex is, can you explain what that is and what do you mean when you say that you have a seat at codex? What is codex? What do they do? And what is your role?
Well, Codex Alimentarius is an international organization that is meant to create food standards, guidelines, and principles that are then shopped around the world by its member countries, who will take those standards and guidelines and will adopt them into their own laws. And when they do this, they're basically harmonizing their individual country standards, food standards, to a global standard. And they've been doing this not quite as long as NHF has been at it. I think Codex is about 55 years old at this stage, but it is extremely important because almost all the countries of the world, I think it's 170 some odd countries at this stage, representing 99% of the world's population, are members of Codex. And it's taken on a lot of importance after the World Trade Organization came into existence in 94 and 95. And what happened then is there were actual trade sanctions that could be levied against countries who didn't adhere to Codex standards in international trade. So it's really important, because what happened with NHF is the only health freedom organization that has been accredited by the Codex Secretariat to participate actively in the meetings that are held by Codex. And when I say Codex, I mean by the commission itself and the various committees that it has. In the meeting that I was referring to, that I just returned from, was and is the Codex Nutrition Committee, that is hosted by the German government. And they hold their meetings usually in Germany, and this time was no exception. In this case, Berlin. And I was there for about a week to deal with some various matters, agenda items that have been brought up there. Nothing dealing with supplements this time. It was more with trying to sneak GMO foods in under a biofortification definition, and then this so-called follow-up formula for older infants that they're trying to literally shove down the throats of older children. So we were dealing with that and a few other issues. But vaccines are still one of our main issues as well. We wear many different hats, and we have a lot of people who are interested in helping us and have been helping us, including, as you know, Jennifer Wolfe Gillespie, Kat Carroll, Lara de la Vega, and Jennifer Basil. If I pronounced her last name incorrectly, I apologize to Jennifer. But these are some of the people, as well as our board members, who are quite active and have been around. You may all be familiar with Sayer G of Green Med Info. He's on our board of governors. And Sayer, I highly recommend Sayer's website, greenmedinfo.com, if you need to go and get some any sort of alternative information on whatever drugs are doing. Well, that's where you go for the alternative. And it's very well researched, very well put together. And gosh, I'm sounding like a commercial for Sayer G, but it is a good site. As well as, if I may send people to our own site, which is the NHF, our initials, nhf.com. We couldn't get nhf.com, so we stuck THE in front of it. So we have the nhf.com, and you can go there for a lot of information as well. And please, anyone listening, sign up on our email list. You can join and like our Facebook page, all of our social media pages, and get a lot of good and useful information there as well.
And I have put your website link on to the screen there. One of the cool things I can do when I'm doing a Be Live broadcast. So since you were mentioning the role that NHS has in vaccine risk awareness advocacy. Let's cover a little bit of what that looks like on a worldwide scale. So here in the United States, we have the CDC and their Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices, the Department of Health and Human Services, and they make the recommendations for the vaccines that go on the infant, pediatric, and adult schedules here in the United States. A lot of times that becomes sort of a model for other countries, but not everybody adapts or adheres to that schedule. So can you speak about the international repercussions of the activities of the CDC as you see that through the NHF?
Well, it's a good question, Tia, and the way it really works is that the CDC, of course, is looked to in the U.S., as you said, and that's quite correct. At the same time, it has a lot of persuasive influence throughout the rest of the world. And the U.S., of course, being sort of the hegemon that it is, likes to throw its weight around the rest of the world, and they like other countries to adopt it. And indeed, what you find is a lot of the Anglo-Saxon countries, especially Australia, New Zealand, Canada, will adopt what the U.S. has already adopted, or sometimes they're very persuasive, to be honest, and they get the U.S. to adopt what they've adopted in terms of vaccines. But the point is that they all have this sort of herd mentality. Let's apply herd mentality to this group think, or maybe I should just call it group think, where the more vaccines, the merrier. And this is their philosophy. But of course, as has been pointed out even by Robert F. Kennedy Jr. lately, although we all knew this before, the CDC is really not a disinterested party. It holds many, many patents itself. It makes millions of dollars off the use and sale of vaccines. So it is rife with conflicts of interest, as is the Department of Health and Human Services, as is the FDA, as are just about all the government agencies out there, whether they're the United States or Health Canada or EFSA, the European Food Safety Authority, it doesn't matter, or the MHRA in the UK, they've all been compromised. And this is the big problem that we face these days, is because all of these government entities are looked at as if they are authorities, when in fact they should be looked at with huge, huge degrees of suspicion. They've all been infiltrated and taken over by big pharma, and it shows in the people who are there. I mean, just looking at the recent problems we've had in the UK with the MHRA, you have a couple of individuals there who are Hadel, and I'm sorry, I'm blanking on the other gentleman's name. It'll come to me in a moment, but they are both with GlaxoSmithKline, and yet they're making major decisions for MHRA in terms of prosecuting cancer remedies and the like, not to mention trying to go against the vaccine industry there. And we have the same problem in the US. You have the same problem in Italy. You have certainly the same problems in France and Germany and Belgium, where vaccines are mandated for kids, and they keep increasing because they're very profitable for the vaccine industry, especially when you have no liability if they harm someone. It's all sloughed off on the taxpayers. But if there's one principle that your viewers can take from this, it's that the agencies who are supposed to protect you do nothing of the sort. They do not protect you. They are there to eliminate the competition. That's their sole objective. And if there's anything I've learned in my 35 years as a food and drug lawyer fighting the FDA, it is just that. If they see a successful company, they'll whack it down if it's a competition for the drug industry. If it's something that's competition for the big agricultural companies, then the USDA or others will knock it down. They're all controlled. You know, back when the Civil Aeronautics Board was in existence and it was regulating the airline industry, back when it, excuse me, back when it controlled the ticket prices for flying, and a lot of people listening won't know it or weren't even alive then, but that was back in the 78 days, 1978 days. Well, what they did is they were controlled by the airline industry, and they were there put in place to keep new companies from springing up. And once they were eliminated, all these new companies came up. Old companies who were kind of dinosaurs died or merged together, and you have the industry you have now where a lot of people can fly at a far lower rate. You know, it's not the dream child that it was back then with these luscious meals and big seats, but at least now more people can afford to fly greater distances than ever happened then. And I had started flying when I was, gosh, probably 7 years old, 5 years old. So I know what it was like back then. And I could see the great divide. Well, the same principle applies to the drug industry and the food industry and supplements and alternative healthcare. The more they are regulated, the more we see control by the thugs of big pharma and big ag and all of that. So it's a little bit counterintuitive, but people need to learn this basic principle. If you want to get rid of all of that corporatocracy, then what you do is you don't, with stars in your eyes, go running to the government and say, oh, let's have a tougher FDA, let's have more rules and regulations, all of that. Big pharma, big ag, they love that because the little guys can't afford to hire the attorneys, the accountants, the bookkeepers, the consultants, the lobbyists, and all of that to get their way. No, not at all. Who can afford to deal with all those new rules and regulations? It's the big fat cats who can do that. So they just love it when those of us amongst us go, more rules, more regulations. Yeah, let's really sock it to them. You know, it's sort of like the old, you know, fairy tale or child's tale about the rabbit saying, please, Briar Fox, don't throw me in the briar patch. And I don't know, that was a tale when I was growing up. I don't know about any longer, but in fact, what the rabbit wanted was to be thrown in the briar patch so that he could escape. Yeah. And this is the big trick that the pharmaceutical industry plays on us. They appear to be adversaries with the FDA, and they really aren't. Mm-hmm. And occasionally tough language comes out from the FDA, but it's all a big Punch and Judy show to fool us. And so if we take away anything from this program, we've got to take away power from the FDA. We've got to take away the guns and bullets from the big agricultural company, big pharmaceutical company thugs, so that we can get out there and have real health and true health care, and not this nonsense we have now, including all these vaccines being forced down into our systems, or our children's systems, as the case may be. I'm pausing so I don't just run on. Although I could run on if you want me to. I'm happy to.
That's good. It's a good time for me to ask another question. So we were discussing how the various different agencies of authority around the world, the CDC and the other national health agencies and other countries sort of play a little game of ping pong ball, you know, back and forth as far as like, what can we get people to do? And it's really not much difference between the FDA, the CDC, and any of these other alphabet soup companies. I don't see much difference between big ag, big chemical, big pharma. They're all in cahoots together. It's all the same body of the beast of a I like to call it, it's the multi-headed hydra with many, many tentacles that reach into everything, and you can't go after one head because if you chop the head off, just two more sprout up.
It's true.
We have to go after the heart of the beast. And who knows where that is, right? Because they do a good job of hiding
They do. I agree with you.
Different institutions and roles and things like that. So, um, what what impact are you seeing around the world with the current state of vaccination and food manipulation? Because it's not just the toxic stuff they put in the food, it's the food that they make available, like what's in the food supply chain, the garbage that's in the food supply chain. I mean, most people wouldn't know what to do if the grocery store ran out of food. They really wouldn't have a clue how to survive. I mean, they control what we eat. They control what goes into the food. Like you mentioned, the fluoridation in the water. They control the water supply. So what have you, or do you have any stats, or does NHF have any stats on how are people faring because of this? Are we healthier as a general rule? Or because they want to tell us that the vaccines and the medications that we have in this modern era make us healthier and we're living longer. And I think I just heard something recently that nope, actually we're not living. This generation's not going to live as long as their parents. So, but what does NHF have any like kind of, data on how the health of the people of the world is? Because are we better off because of all this garbage, or are we?
Well, we're actually not better off. And there are statistics on it. Do I have them at hand right at the moment? No, I don't. I'm sorry. But what I can tell you is that it's a very tough job these days to stay healthy for any of us. Even in the best of countries, you have to try to eat organic. You have to avoid a large number of toxins and contaminants, not only in the food supply, but in the water supply and just the atmosphere, let alone, and it could be EMFs as well as what's filtering down in the sky upon our heads and the like. It's very tough, and the lifespan, they make the mainstream media, that is, makes a lot of noise about how we're all living longer and better and all of that, but it's really not the case. It's sort of the same sort of game they play with cancer survival rates. They say, more people are surviving longer from cancer. But let me just put these two pins up here. So this pin here. It is representing when you discover you have cancer or someone has cancer, and this is when that person dies. And so all they're doing with early detection is they are moving the discovery date this way so that they can then brag and say, look, people are living longer. But the important thing is, don't take your eye off this pin. The death date remains the same. Whether you discovered it here, 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 or even right here, the death date from cancer remains the same. It's not appreciably increasing the survival rate for cancer. They're just bragging about it using false statistics. Well, it's the same way with our food supply and all of that. And increasingly people are worse and worse food. I mean, even look at the Fukushima thing and how the radiation has caused a lot of us who thought, well, Alaskan salmon is about the healthiest thing you could eat. And in fact, it's not. And it's not just limited to the radiation in the ocean. It's also stretches to the plastics in the ocean. So now we find that a lot of these fish are contaminated with plastics. Well, that's why the Codex part of this equation is, and I'm proud to say we played a huge part in fighting all of this at Codex, sometimes all by ourselves. With 300 delegates in the room, I've been the only one to stand up and say glyphosate is bad and it should be banned. In a Codex meeting in China a few years ago, and the Codex Committee on Pesticide Residue, I was the only one. There were a row of 40 DuPont and Monsanto thugs behind me who twittered in laughter when I said that, because they thought that was the funniest thing they'd ever heard, that glyphosate was dangerous and should be banned. Of course, let's see how their kids do when they're cropping up with cancer at the age of 12. from exposure to Roundup. But in any event, this is where it all sort of ties together, is at Codex, because a lot of these issues, at least not on the vaccines, because Codex only deals with food. I mean, the name of Codex is Codex Alimentarius, which in Latin means food code. So it's just dealing with food, doesn't deal with electromagnetic devices, doesn't deal with doctors, doesn't deal with vaccines. But there's a lot of spillover effect, and it all goes towards this sort of goal of global harmonization that we see going on and have all of us seen going on at various times. All of us have had snippets or little snapshots even. This game that's being played, it just happens to, on the food level, to be played out at a higher level at Codex Alimentarius. So we've been fighting that on many different issues, many different committees at Codex. But I have to tell you, it's a tough thing to do, because when we have to fly to China, be it a week-long meeting there, and then come back to, say, the United States or Europe for another week-long meeting. Then there might be a stretch where there are no meetings, but then you start all over again. And then in between meetings, there are electronic working groups that meet and discuss these issues. And you want to submit papers, and you're there, and you're the only one arguing on a particular topic. I mean, we were hugely successful at the Codex Committee on Residues of Vet Drugs in Food meeting that happened in Chicago last April 2018, because we were able to stop, and we were the key people who stopped it, Zilpaterol, from being moved up the 8-step process or ladder to approval by arguing against the Merck minions who were there, you know, in large numbers. In fact, we got them so angry at NHF that they went up to, I don't have my phone, but anyway, they went up to the Codex science guy and said, look, they called your science junk science. Look at that. And went up to the Codex secretary and said, look, there's a picture, Tom, of you, the secretariat, with Scott Tips, and you don't know how bad that's going to look. Come over to the table and chortle, everyone here hates you now. Everyone here hates you now. You'll never get anything done, you know, and then go off. That's how much they hated us, because we had stopped their multi-million-dollar drug cold in its tracks from being approved for use worldwide. And they were angry as could be, and we were the main ones there who had stopped them. So it happens. We can make a difference. Sometimes we don't. Sometimes we've had our failures and defeats as well, but we've had plenty of victories over these 20 years we've been going to these meetings. So it all works together, but we need a lot of more people working together on vaccine issues, on the health of our food, on electromagnetic frequencies, including this new 5G coming out, and just to keep ourselves healthy. So I didn't really answer your question, though, Tia, so let me get back to it. Bottom line, the health of everyone is going down, as our NHF Executive Director, Kat Cure, reminds us all the time. Food is guilty until proven innocent. Remember that. Food is guilty until proven innocent. So all of us, I don't care where you live, we need to act consciously and deliberately to protect our foods and to eat carefully and avoid toxins, avoid xenoestrogens in the environment. And just as an example, the sperm count for 20-year-old men, it's an inverted curve. It's worse than that of 60-year-old men now. Now, who ever heard of that? It should be like double, triple, quadruple that of 60-year-old men. It's not. So we're destroying a whole generation. But see, I think this is part of the plan, if you can call it a plan. Mm-hmm. It's either stumbling, bumbling idiots, or it's a plan. But I've noticed throughout all of my work on all of these different issues, from dumbing down the vitamin mineral levels in our foods and our supplements to increasing the toxin levels and the like, what are the intersecting circles of all these actions? What is it affecting uniformly? Each one of them has a different effect, but what's the universal effect? It's reducing fertility. It's reducing fertility. The fertility of men and women has dropped dramatically. And fertility is a sign of health and well-being. So this is a way you can measure it. And in all those levels, we're doing far worse than our grandparents did. In fact, if you're to take an apple and eat that apple today, except maybe an organic apple, you know, the nutrient content of that apple or that peach or pear is, he keeps sneaking back and forth behind you, but it's okay. The apple is less than that of what our grandparents ate. And in fact, as I tell audiences, I say it's a really easy statistic to remember. The nutrient level, the vitamin mineral content of our foods has generally dropped by 50% over the last 50 years. Just remember 50-50, 50% in 50 years. And I once in 2005 had a huge argument with the Codex Nutrition Committee chairman, who denied that fact. I said, well, look, there are American and Canadian studies that point this out very, very strongly. And he goes, no, there are no such studies, never heard of such studies. And so here it is, 13 years later, and I'm being proven correct by other studies and just by the sheer state of people's health and all of that. So in any event, this is something that's important for us to all know, and it's a good question on your part to ask.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know, it's interesting. You were saying that it all ties together, and it certainly does. You mentioned glyphosate, and I'm sure that you're aware that they have done some testing and found glyphosate, undeclared glyphosate, in every vaccine that has been tested for it.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and what purpose does it have being there? None.
Well, it's an unintended byproduct, it's an unintended consequence of using animal gelatin, is what I understand, because they're trying to figure out the mystery of how did this glyphosate get into the vaccines, where you have cows eating grass and feed that's been treated with glyphosate, and it gets concentrated into the gelatin, and then that gelatin is used in the vaccines. But my interest here is that we have ingredients in the vaccine is designed to stimulate an immune response. So your body, if your body, for a vaccine to work correctly, and they have to put adjuvants in there to get that, to stimulate the body to actually create antibodies to whatever antigens they're trying to stimulate or provoke an immune response to, whether it be measles, mumps, you know, chicken pox, whooping cough, you name it.
Yes.
They had the attenuated or killed bacteria or attenuated virus will not provoke an immune reaction. So they have to put these adjuvants in there like aluminum in order to provoke the body to have an immune response. So what's interesting to me is that we have vaccines that have fetal DNA from both sexes, propagated 60-year-old cell line in both cases, at least the ones that they're admitting to. We have two cell lines propagated in labs for over 60 years of, both sexes. We have animal proteins from all different animals, chickens, cows, pigs, dogs, cocker spaniels,
yes.
guinea pigs. And we have, then we have glyphosate in there, right? So what interests me is how it appears that they are, whether intentionally or unintentionally, we're provoking an immune response, an allergic reaction in a way to pretty much everything that this child or a person is going to be exposed to throughout their life. Do you think that those two issues overlap and create more of a perfect storm? So we've got the food, our food supply is heavily controlled, right? And now we have these vaccines that are provoking immune reaction to things that we're eating. And I'll let you go.
Yeah, no, thank you. And just let me say, it does. what they're doing is they're lowering our immune system's capability to fight these things off through the reduced nutrient levels of foods and the unhealthy foods we eat. So we don't have enough vitamin D in our system, for example, or magnesium, for example, or even vitamin C. Another person who's looked into this a lot, even more than I have, put it very well when he said, look, what they're trying to do is kick the hornet's nest. They have a kitchen sink approach to stimulating the immune system. They don't care what it is. And that's why I was saying about the glyphosate and the other. They'll just throw it all into the mix. They don't really care because it's like kicking a hornet's nest. It'll stir up all the hornets. It'll create an immune system response, and that's what they want. So I think it's very irresponsible. And of course, it lacks informed consent for any of the people who are getting these because they aren't told that this is truly what they're doing. But getting back to your basic question, yes, it is kind of a perfect storm situation. So they're stringing us on one hand by nutritionally depriving us of the nutrients we need, and at the same time overloading our systems with toxins, contaminants, and the like that our system simply cannot handle. And you put that in the bodies of young children, infants, and it's absolutely destructive. And that's what we see with the carnage, with the highest death rate in U.S. hospitals in the world of children, 1 day old infants who end up dead because they've been given the Hep B vaccine within 24 hours of birth, not to mention other vaccines and the like, not even being put into their mother's arms so they can bond and get nutrition from the mother. And this is a crime. This is a Holocaust, as some others have said. It's an ongoing Holocaust that we're seeing right now. Now, I may get into trouble with certain people for saying that, but it's, there can be more than one Holocaust. And this
what other word is there?
Yeah. So in any event, this is something that we all need to rebel against now and just say no. And people need to take power back into their hands. If they say, oh, well, we can't put your children into government indoctrination camps. Oh, I'm sorry, we call them public schools, but government indoctrination camps because your child hasn't been given the flu vaccine or this vaccine or the DTaP or whatever it may be, or Gardasil, then we should say, well, good riddance to you. There are a lot of homeschooling groups out there, and you can band together with other parents and homeschool your children. That is still protected in the U.S., largely protected. And so take your kids out of those indoctrination camps where they're either at danger, physical danger or mental danger, let alone the health harm that will be done to them by eating there or getting the vaccines and the like, and just thumb your noses at those authorities and say goodbye. And then align yourselves with like-minded individuals on the homeschooling front. That's the alternative right now until we can throw people out in California, at least like Senator Pan, out of office and get the laws changed. So, but I think we're making a lot of progress. We saw the court case where the CDC admitted it hadn't filed a single vaccine safety report as it had been mandated to do since 1988. That is 2 years after the passage of the 1986 Childhood Injury Vaccine Compensation Act. And so they've just admitted nothing on vaccine safety, everything on promoting more vaccines. So we know their agenda. And as we said at the beginning of the program, it's all about making money for the CDC, for its corporate paymasters and the like. And we need to shine the spotlight on that and bring an end to it, not only in the United States, but in Italy. They elected this new populist government, and the hope was, and it was largely with the support of the anti-vaccine people in Venezia and in some other semi-autonomous areas of Italy, regions of Italy, and now they've betrayed that trust. They haven't done what they said they were going to do, which is get rid of a large part of the mandates for school children in Italy, and that's made everyone very, very angry. And so we may see another revolt in that direction as well. We have a lot of supporters in Italy, and I have to tell you, if there's anything that'll make an Italian father and mother angry, it's touching those bambinos and bambinas and hurting them, because the family unit's pretty tight in Italy, certainly compared to Anglo-Saxon countries, Nordic countries. So we can expect a lot more action from there. We'll see what happens with France. This Yellow Vest rebellion or revolt is not just about the gasoline tax being increased. It's also about a number of other issues. But if history teaches us anything, it's that, revolts can start for one reason, and then they take a very different turn and direction, and can end up with a very tyrannical ruler in its place. I mean, the French Revolution, the original French Revolution, started out that way. Very lofty goals and ideals, and then look what you ended up with. You ended up with the terror of the guillotine, and you ended up with Napoleon. So we have to be very, very careful, and it's encouraging to see these when they happen. But the reality is it's real easy for sociopaths and psychopaths to gain control of the mob and redirect it to their own goals, their own ends, which are invariably bad goals. So we have to be on the guard against that.
Mm. So, well, I'm a bit of a conspiracy theorist, so I happen to know that starting with the French Revolution, both sides of every conflict pretty much in the world have been funded by the same people. Yeah. And they absolutely
big large banks, and they okay, yeah. I would agree.
So you're right. When there is a revolution, and I love the French. My best friend is French. I speak French. I've been to France. And from what I've heard, I've gotten a few little reports back. I heard that someone spray painted on the l'Arc de Triomphe.
I saw it.
Cut people's heads off for less than this. We toppled the bourgeoisie. So
what were they doing? A lot of times they put provocateurs, provocateurs in amongst the real people, and they do all these bad things to make them look bad. Right. So I wouldn't be surprised if they were agent provocateurs who did the graffiti.
But the message is still the same. Hey, look, we've had it. The problem is in that upheaval. And that's my fear here too in the United States, is that we really need a complete reset on the government.
We do, because nothing changes. You can elect the same. You can go to if elections really counted, they would be illegal. They wouldn't let you have them. So, as they say, the more we elect, the less things change. So I think you're absolutely right, Tia, and I think we're headed for a very rough patch in the U.S., where the U.S. will be ground zero. I mean, that's one reason I don't live in the U.S. anymore, and haven't for quite some time. I think from California to New York, we're looking at potential trouble. And maybe it's actual trouble, but certainly potential heavy trouble. And I don't know. It might be safer to be somewhere else for a change. In any event, I don't know if being in Europe is any better, but there's a friend of mine, Harry Schultz, who once said, it's better to be a tourist in someone else's country than to be a citizen in your own. And they treat you better. You aren't taking away someone's job or work. You're adding to the economy, so they treat you better. So I'm kind of like a perpetual tourist, as he would say, who goes through other countries and the like. But in any event, it's generally bad in the Western world, just about everywhere. And with the mass migrations being shoved down our throats and all of that, they're trying to replace the population with new populations, and they're trying to disrupt the countries. And with that, they will get the one world government that they're so desperately seeking to have. But then there are plenty of other people who will thwart that one way or the other. And there will be, as you mentioned, I thought, some cataclysmic event that will, whether it's natural, whether it's man made, who knows at this stage. But I think in 10 years' time, if not sooner, we'll look back on this as sort of the relatively peaceful time, and we'll see. But in the meantime, what can we do? We can take action on our own. And a lot of people listen to, well, let me just give it as an example. Like a lot of people listen to QAnon and they take heart from what QAnon says. But QAnon's nothing but a psyops maneuver. And it's meant to lull, it's a typical classic operation where it's meant to lull people into inaction. We don't have to do it because Q tells us there are all these indictments that will be handed down. Q tells us that's just right around the corner. Well, how long has it been right around the corner? It's been right around the corner for a very long time. And so, you know, QAnon is a fairy tale, and we shouldn't believe in that. What we need to do is take action ourselves and do what we want to do, what we need to do. You know, liberty, freedom is a two-sided coin. On one side is freedom, on the other side is responsibility. And a lot of people fear responsibility. That's why they fear freedom. But if we want freedom, not only for our food, but in our political beliefs and the like, religious beliefs, whatever it might be, we've got to take action. We have to take action now. I mean, even now might be too late, but at least it's something. And if enough like-minded people band together, then we can accomplish something. But if we don't, if we stay disunited, if we believe this fairy tale that someone else is going to solve the problem for us, then nothing will change, nothing at all. And so we've got to get out there. And that's one of the things I'm very proud of the National Health Federation for. It's been doing this uncorrupted. We haven't been influenced by government money, big pharma money, any of that stuff. We've been doing it since 1955, and they know we're a threat. If you go read Wikipedia about us, which of course is mainstream propaganda, you'll read all the horrible things about us. We had a nice entry in there. They changed it. The big pharma trolls sat on it, wouldn't let us change it back. We even had an attorney threaten them. They threatened the attorney back and said, no more changes or else. Our attorney never found out what the or else meant. But in any event, that's what these people are like. Look what they did with us, the Merck guy, with us at the Codex meeting last April. Look what they've done, all these doctors who have died, people who have had their reputations ruined and the like. You know, they'll go through any means possible to do this to us, to deter us from changing the system. But that's what we need to do. But one way to change the system is, I think it was Buckminster Fuller who said this, is we need to posit an alternative system that's better, that will attract people to it. And if we do this, then we will have a far greater chance of success than just talking about destruction of the existing order, or at least change of the existing order and, you know, kind of putting band-aids on it. What we really need is a whole new system that is transparent, that is not corrupt, that's run by the rule of law. I mean, really, if you have three basic principles of freedom, you have respect for private property, you have rule of law, and you have free market, that is non-coercive interactions between people. And I'm not talking about crony capitalism or state capitalism or state socialism. I'm talking about true free market, voluntary exchanges between individuals, free individuals. If you have those three things, you will have prosperity like there's no tomorrow, and people can choose for themselves how to be healthy, whether they want vaccines or not, and the like. And that's what we should be striving for. And there are already examples of where that works. In the world today, there are examples of that. I don't know if I have time to go into it. I think we're near the end of your program, but just keep in mind it has happened in the past. It can happen again, where
Mm-hmm.
we can have this kind of a system. And for those out there who are communists, more power to you. If it's voluntary communism, they can go out in such a system and form their own society and live amongst themselves and do as they wish. No one should be coercing them, but then don't coerce us into your system either.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just basically how it works. And that's what we should be striving for. And if we strive for that, then we will have better health just by virtue of the way the system works. And we'll have true health care, not disease care.
Mm-hmm. And those are all quite lofty and
Goals.
fabulous goals, but
Yeah,
we have a power structure in place that
we do. That's
does not
true.
want us to do that.
And they're very tenacious and they have a lot of money and they control a lot of people, politicians and doctors and organizations and the like. So there is another way. The other way is to say, to hell with society. I'm not playing your game. And you find a few, it won't be a lot, but a few like minded families or individuals, and you go off and set up your own little ranch out in the countryside or community out in the countryside and stay beneath the radar. That's another option. So could do that. The other thing is go off planet, but I think we're a little far away from that. So who knows?
If you got any leads on that,
I wish I did.
the question is, will the other planet be better than the one we're on? That's the whole problem, right?
Yeah, that is the whole problem. You're right. Hey, we might get to Pandora. Who knows? So, but in any event, we live in interesting times, which, as you know, is the Chinese curse. And so we've just got to deal with the cards that we have on our table and do the best we can. But the best we can starts with us and those immediately around us, and that is eating more healthily, avoiding television if you can, avoiding the mainstream media in general, not believing their lies, going to alternative sources of information such as yours, Tia. My hat's off to you for that, because that's what you're providing, an alternative to these people out there. And, join organizations like the National Health Federation, please, because we only exist because of the support of our members and a few other, good-minded people. And if we don't have that support, then we can't continue to exist. We won't be there for you. We won't be stopping Zilpaterol at Codex meetings or keeping melamine out of infant formula or increasing the nutrient reference value for vitamin C. All of these things we accomplished, the NHF accomplished by being there at the Codex meetings. They wanted to knock the potency of vitamin C, the daily requirement for vitamin C, down from a measly 60 milligrams a day down to 45 milligrams a day.
That's
and
great.
NHF, at the time this was proposed in 2009 at the Dusseldorf Nutrition Committee meeting of Codex, I was the only one to stand up in that whole crowd and say, no, it shouldn't be this. You shouldn't be lowering magnesium from 300 milligrams to 240 milligrams. Shouldn't be lowering all the B vitamins by anywhere from 22 to 66%, except for folic acid. You shouldn't be increasing the amount of calcium relative to magnesium. That's madness. We were the only ones to say that. And you know what? It took me nearly an hour of debate, mainly with the Australian delegate, pure evil, but the Australian delegate, and we were able to stop it. And we had two delegations who supported us. There are two country delegations who supported the National Health Federation. That was Iraq, because I'd happened to befriend him during a coffee break. So I guess he felt he owed me support, but he gave it at a critical time. And then the country of India. India spoke up at a really critical time, and it totally swayed the chairman in our direction, along with whatever we had already said there. So we were able to stop it. And when the vitamin C standards were put in place 3 to 5 years later, they'd increased the level of vitamin C, not decreased, but increased by 220%. And that was all due to NHF because of that. And so now it has a much higher potency for daily limits, daily requirements. And so that's how we can make a difference. But it really needs the support of people out there. So I really appreciate you having us on the program. And I'm really thrilled because we have some really dynamite new people working with and for us at NHF. I mean, Lara de la Vega is one of them, Jennifer Wolf Gillespie. You can find all of them on Facebook. And Kat Carroll, of course, is our NHF Executive Director for quite some time. And we have our magazine that comes out regularly, quarterly. And we have a lot of new information there. We have people who have cured cancer, and they've been featured there. In fact, one of them ended up in prison recently in London, but that's a whole nother program. And I realize we're out of time here, but that's something to talk about as well.
Well, before we go, please let folks know how they can get involved if they're interested in either supporting NHF or getting involved in a more proactive level. Like, what opportunities do you guys have for people to get involved? What kind of support do you need? How can people get in touch with you? How can they support you? And how can they get involved?
Thank you. All excellent questions. And the first and foremost is go to the website that's up on the screen in front of you there. Thank you, Tia, for that. thenhf.com, and sign up on our email list so you can get informed. and then frankly, there's another button just below, I think, or nearby, and I don't have the website in front of me, but join the NHF. It doesn't cost much. If you're in North America, it's $45 a year, plus you get the magazine, plus you help send us to the meeting. The third way is to donate. It doesn't take a member or even a member of the email list to donate, and that helps us. Every little bit helps. You know, I wouldn't have been at that meeting in Dusseldorf to make the difference on vitamin C and the other vitamins if it hadn't been for a gentleman in Dublin who donated $1,000. Now, everyone doesn't have to donate $1,000, but say 10 people with $100 or 100 people with $10. It's the same thing. But anyway, he paid my expenses to go to that meeting. And so he really was the unsung hero, this Irishman in Dublin who sent me there. I wouldn't have been there to stand up and argue for an hour on this issue if it hadn't been for him. So it makes a difference from the listeners there. They can make a direct difference in the lives, a positive difference in the lives of 7 billion people worldwide. Now, the other ways can get involved is volunteering. We need people to help. We need people to do research on vaccine issues, on issues that come up before the Codex meeting and the like, and they can contact us. There's a part of the website that talks about contact us, as do all websites, and just go to it and send a contact us. Yeah, I think it's contact us at thenhf.com, but look on the website and it will direct you and just say, hey, I'm here and name what part of the world you're in, and I'd like to help. You know, for those who are listening or watching from Sweden, or the UK, we have very active groups there, and they could use your help. Also the Netherlands, also Italy. So it doesn't have to just be the US, it doesn't just have to be Canada. So contact us no matter where you are. And in any event, that's probably the best thing right there. And let me think if there's anything else. Okay, no, that's probably the best way, Tia, at this point. Okay. And we have a lot of material. We have back issues of the magazine available. And let me 1 second. I mean, this is like, just give you an example of the magazine. I don't know if you can see this. This is one issue. It talks about Tim Cunningham who was a vaccine researcher who ended up dead because they didn't like his research. So he ended up dead. But it talks about a lot of different different things. And yeah, he's the one who blew the whistle and said the CDC kept the flu vaccine in play when they knew it was mutated, contained a mutated strain of the flu. So
yeah, that guy went for a jog with some crystals in his pocket, left his wallet, his dog, and his phone at home, and ended up going swimming in the hooch, the
yes,
Chattahoochee River.
yeah, that's a good way to put it, and very colorful way. But this, and I'm sure there are people alive now who will no longer be alive because of taking a stand against the elite on these issues. But we still have to do it. Otherwise, what kind of people are we if we don't take stand for a better world? I could have been a partner in a big, high, fancy law firm in the city and making millions of dollars, but I'd rather make a difference in the world, and that's why I'm president of the NHF and doing what I am instead of some sort of fancy lawyer wearing $800 shoes. So, that's really what counts, is to make a difference in the world and make it a better world. So hopefully that's what people out there are doing or wanting to do. And we certainly welcome all of you to join us at NHF.
That's absolutely wonderful, and I really appreciate you coming on our show.
I appreciate you, Tia. Thank you.
And we'll have to get together again. We'll have to do another one of these. Maybe
please.
We'll do a talk show type where we can have some other members come on, maybe Lyra. And
that would be great. Yeah.
If I can figure out how to work it. I'm still learning this broadcasting software.
Well, you educated me on it. I learned a lot just from doing this. I didn't even know this existed. So this system, So anyway, thank you.
I like it better than Zoom. I know that people are able to use Zoom and go live on Facebook, but I can't go live to a page. At least I hadn't figured out how to do it. So they've got a free platform, so you can play around with the free platform on Be Live. And then they have paid memberships. So I just upgraded after a year of playing around with the free version.
I didn't see it. Yeah, that's good. Well, I appreciate
what are your next plans? What is the next big thing that you guys are doing? And before we go,
it's probably, we're trying to spring this guy out of prison for having sold GC maps. So we're doing a campaign to get David Noakes, is his name, to get David Noakes out of prison. And then we have the Codex meetings in China, in Food Additives Committee and the Pesticide Residue Committee in March and April, late March, early April. So I'll probably go to one of those. I'm not sure which one yet. We can't really afford to go to both, so probably just go to one. And then have some other committees to go to. We have the vaccine issue arising again in not only in the States, but in Italy. So we'll probably address that. We're working on the aspartame thing because a lot of new information has come out on the dangers of aspartame. So we think we might be able to make some headway with that. And so we're going to put some energy into that as well. There's so many different things. It's hard to
So people can go to your Facebook page, the National Health Federation on Facebook, and I'm hoping that you have updates about those things that you were just talking about and some other things that are coming up. So if people want, please go to National Health Federation on Facebook, click like and follow so that you can see what they're doing.
Yeah, and I should have said that more clearly at the end. I said it in the beginning, but I should have wrapped up with that as well. But since I presume, broadcasting through Facebook,
Yes.
we have that was already kind of a given.
So what I'll do is when I'm done with this broadcast, I will go back and I will edit it, and I will include the link to the Facebook page so that people can find it easily, and they can like and they can follow and see what you're doing. And also I'll put the website information in there, and hopefully people will support NHF and send you lots of love and
you know what
money. money makes
that's true.
As long as they're still taking this fake fiat money, we might as well give some of it to a good cause. Because you mentioned earlier, they got all the money, but all the money they've got is fake. It's all fake money. It's not
true.
real.
I don't know how to scan down for it. Maybe there's a way. But, oh wait. But I just realized there are all these comments on the side. Live.
Yep.
And I didn't shoot.
You'll have to go back and jump on the video after we end it and read through the comments and stuff that people have left for you.
All right, that sounds good, because I don't know how to see them here because it doesn't scan down. Maybe 17 likes, no laughs. That's good. One angry. Let's see. And then there are comments. There are many National Health Federation pages. We are international. Yeah, I don't know how to read these. Oh, wait.
Worry about that after we're done. We'll go back and take a look at it on the replay. Because you can go on, you can watch it on the replay if you feel like it. Okay, or you can.
When will you have that up, Tia?
It'll be up momentarily after we end the broadcast, because it's an hour-long broadcast. It might take a few minutes to load up, but I've already shared it on my page. So if you just go there, you can share the link, and the same link for the live video will be the link for the replay. Okay.
Okay. That sounds good. All right, thank you.
Say goodbye to the peeps. Thank you, peeps, for tuning in, and please stay tuned. I'll be bringing you more exciting and fun and informative and heartwarming and heartbreaking and all that other stuff that we do on PeepsTV soon. God bless. Happy Sunday. I'll be back later tonight, you guys. Pay attention. Bye.